Welcome back to Ancestral Wisdom, where the wisdom of the past guides our future. Today I'd like to talk a little bit about Odysseus and the Odyssey, and to try to discover who exactly Odysseus is. Now, as an English teacher, I often teach my students that one of the most important things to understand about reading literature is that you're reading the story of somebody else's life, oftentimes fictional, and it's outside of yourself, but it's not worth anything unless you're able to put yourself in the place of a character, learn the lessons that they're learning, and have your life be affected by the story that you're reading. And the same was true of ancient literature and mythology. The purpose of ancient literature and mythology was to have us make ourselves better through the reading. So how is the Odyssey accomplishing that? How is the Odyssey making us better? And in what way is it making us better? Well, one of the most important things to think about is numbers. When we were talking about Odin, and I'll link the video in which we try to uncover who Odin really is below, we mentioned that Odin hung for 9 days and 9 nights a sacrifice to himself to himself. So the number 9 was important. Well, it's also very interesting that the Trojans, before Odysseus got lost at sea, the Trojans were besieged by Odysseus and the Greeks for 9 years and taken in the 10th year. And Odysseus himself was at sea for 9 years and he got home in the 10th year. And Odin hung for 9 days and 9 nights and came off the spear on the 10th day. That number shows up again and again, or variations of it, the number 3, which is a variation on the number 9. And as we mentioned in the Odin video, we can think of any permutation of the number 9 in mythology or literature as having something to do with birth, but that's not all that it relates to. So if we wanted to, we could say that one possible piece of symbolism in the Iliad and the Odyssey is the process of the same process that happened with Odin, of gathering up the ruins, of gaining wisdom, of getting through whatever has to be gotten through in order to come into this world in the first place. But also, we can view it in regards to the cycles in our own lives once we are here. So Odysseus goes through many challenges in his life and in his journey, in his Odyssey. And each challenge can be seen as another learning experience in which he picks up something that was missing from him at Troy. At Troy, he was just trying to get into this world. It was the birth, the gestation and the birth. And the Odyssey is him trying to become the strongest, the greatest version of himself. So, what did Odysseus have going for him in the beginning? Well, he was blessed by Athena, right? It's another way of saying he was wise. The goddess of wisdom was with him. He was a wise man. And he was very sly and cunning, and he had a lot of intelligence and knowledge. But there are other things that he had lacking. And throughout his journey, he was able to tackle each one of them. When he chained himself to the mast and allowed himself to be the only person through his pride and hubris to hear the siren's call. He made it so that he was the only person that had felt that temptation and lived to tell about it later. He added something to who he was. He made himself more than other people were. And it's true that throughout his journey, his pride gets him into trouble quite a bit. But it's also true that throughout his journey, he learns and grows and becomes a better version of himself. Now, one of my students, in a conversation we were having about this, they brought up the idea that each new piece of knowledge that he gained could be connected to a specific god. So he already had wisdom. And then throughout his journey, he learned from Ares, or in the symbolically, Ares can represent this learning. He learned to be violent when you need to be. And he learned the true meaning of love when he yearned finally to get back to his Penelope. So that can be symbolically represented by Aphrodite. And he learned something about on his journey to the underworld. He learned a few lessons which can be symbolized through the symbolism of the god Hades. And so each thing that he did on his journey could be connected to one of the gods. What I found extremely interesting about this theory is that at the end, when he comes back home, Penelope puts before the suitors a contest in which they had to shoot an arrow, not only shoot an arrow, they had to string Odysseus' bow and shoot an arrow through 12 axe handles. The chickens want to get in on this conversation here. But he had to shoot an arrow through 12 axe handles. And the number 12 is also a very interesting number because the Greeks and the Romans counted 12 gods as the most important, the 12 Olympians. And so the hypothesis could be stated that each of the 12 axe handles represents another aspect of Odysseus' personality that can correspond to a particular god that he gained throughout his travels. None of the other suitors had even stood a chance of getting the arrow through 12 axe handles because they hadn't gone through that process of learning and of becoming better and of becoming the strongest versions of themselves that Odysseus had. But since Odysseus not only was born with wisdom, but then he acquired the knowledge of true love, and he acquired the wisdom of the and he acquired all of these different things that can be symbolized by each of the 12 Olympians. He was the only one that could symbolically get the arrow through each of the 12 axe handles. And it was when he could get the arrow through each of the 12 axe handles that he became worthy of his kingdom, and he became worthy of his bride, and he became worthy of the rewards that were waiting for him in Ithaca. He needed to go through that. And in the same way, we need to try ourselves. We need to test ourselves. We were all born with certain skills, hopefully. But there are certain things that each and every single one of us is lacking. And it's our job. Our life is our Odyssey. And as we go through our Odyssey, it's our job to acquire all of the different skills and types of wisdom to make ourselves a complete person. If we were just Dionysus, we would be drunks. If we were just Ares, we would be belligerent warmongers. If we were just Aphrodite, we'd be drunk on love without the wisdom to support it. If we were just wise, if we were just Athena, then our wisdom would be our downfall, because we'd be so smart, our hubris would tear us apart, as it did Odysseus several times before he had gathered to himself the balance of all 12 Olympians. So as we make our way through life, we should seek out challenges which will test specifically the things that we're lacking to help us grow and become the strongest version of ourselves. We've already come into this world. We've gotten past that battle. The gates of Troy are sacked. But what will we do while we're here? Become not just a god, become the sum of the gods. Become what the gods represent, the height of each human type of knowledge coming together in order to form something that we can call divine, something that we can be proud of, things that our children and our children's children can look back on and say, I praise my ancestors, because my ancestors achieved heights that I long to achieve myself. Make your children look up to you. Make your grandchildren look up to you. And make your children's children's children after that look up to you, because you became a god among men while you were here on earth. Feurus theresas, ansus raido cenas, gebo onjo hagalas, naudis hera, iuas pethroegas, so illo divas, vercando evo manas, lagus ingvas degas, o thala.